Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another exciting episode of the Duck Zone. We are in the conference championship week. Only four teams remain in the NFL, but there has been a lot that has happened in the sports and football world here in the past week. So we got a lot to unwind. Before we start, James, how was your past week?
That was good. Good week. Had the national championship on Monday, which I know we'll start off with, but been a good week. Excited for some more football.
Yeah, should be a great weekend, and yeah, we'll jump right into it. It was kind of cool seeing. We'll talk about this as well. It was fun to see football in the snow. That was a lot of fun. But let's jump back to Monday night. We saw Ohio State take care of Notre Dame in Atlanta, claiming their first national championship in 10 years. It's pretty surprising to think that I thought it'd been sooner, but 10 years since Ohio State had crowned themselves national champions. What did you take away from that game? Was it pretty much what you expected? What were your thoughts?
Yeah, I thought it was a pretty exciting game. I mean, you start the game off with a incredible 15 play, 10-minute drive, and you're like, oh wow, okay, Notre Dame, they can move the ball in Ohio State. This might be a fun game. Nope, that sapped all of Riley Leonard's energy. Ohio State went on to basically dominate the game, and then Notre Dame had a pretty great, attempted comeback. They made it exciting, I guess I should say, for not only Notre Dame fans to have a little hope, but just random fans like us watching the game. So overall, I thought it was a exciting enough game. Unfortunately, Notre Dame just didn't have it in them. And personally, I'm not a huge fan of Riley Leonard. Guy's got a ton of heart. He's he isn't a great quarterback. He's an athletic guy. He can run the ball. He makes throws when he needs to, but obviously just didn't quite do enough. He kind of reminds me of Colin Klein, right-handed quarterback for Kansas State, like 10 to 15 years ago. I don't think Riley Leonard really has a shot in the NFL, but overall, I mean, I thought it was a fun game. Jeremiah Smith is absolutely insane. He made an incredible catch when Ohio State needed it to kind of ice the game, but yeah, I mean, hats off to Ohio State. You hate to see it because I hate Ohio State, but good for them. And yeah, I guess that's the cap on the first 12-game playoff. So, what did you think about the game and everything?
Yeah, I mean, Ohio State, from the moment this playoff started to the end of it, really showed they were the most dominant team. So they really left nothing left on the field. It was kind of nice to end the college football season with no debate. Like it was just like this was definitely the best team. The playoff kind of made it that there was no fifth team that maybe could have. So Ohio State just blew out everyone. Would like to have seen a better game. That first drive was really intriguing, but the moment that Notre Dame scored. They took, and it was like 10 minutes off the clock. Riley Leonard had carried the ball 8 or 9 times, and he's puking on the sideline after one drive. It was like, okay, this is not gonna work the rest of the game. It was kind of like they scored, but it was at the exact same time. It was like, oh no, because then Ohio State came right back and scored in 4 plays. It was like, oh boy, this is. I don't think they're going to slow them down. They're not going to be able to do that 15 play drive all day, which they didn't. Um, I would have liked to have seen a little bit better of a game, but it is what it is. Ohio State was just very dominant and proved themselves that they are worthy national champions. I mean, we've talked about this a lot. I know we've said the seeding should be better. I was very happy with the 12-team playoff. It wasn't the greatest playoff, given the fact that you could probably make a pretty good argument that 8 of the games were pretty uncompetitive, 7 to 8 of them. So let's just hope for better things next year. Maybe we'll get a little bit more competitive games. They'll iron out some of these issues with the buys and the seeding. But overall, from a money standpoint, I think college football is very happy.
Yeah, I mean, unless you were a fan of those teams that blew out the other teams in those 8 games you talk about, kind of boring games. But if yeah, I mean, if you're a Penn State fan and That Boise game, that was fun for you, but for the rest of the country, it's kind of like, and I know you're not. Obviously, it's sports. You play the game for a reason, and obviously, we're just fans watching. It's not like they're playing the game to cater to us. So, what we think about the games, and like, unfortunately, we didn't get good games. None of those teams really care. Obviously, they're just out there trying to win, but.
Yeah.
But it would be, as a casual fan of all those games, since my Arizona Wildcats don't probably have the playoffs in any sight for the foreseeable future, it just would be nice to have, like, watchable games. Some of those, you could turn them off at halftime.
Yeah. Hey, just look at ASU. Things can turn around really fast in these years of college football with the transfer portal. That said, we'll jump from college football to the pro game. Before we jump into any games or anything like that, there's been a ton of coaching hires in the past week. We got 5. We talked about Vrabel last week. That would have been the 6th. But we got 5 new this week. Do we want to rattle them off, or do we want to just kind of talk about which ones you think will be the most significant? I'll leave it to you, James, to kind of take it from here. I got my opinions as well.
We can go one by one, and
Okay.
just keep it quick, because
Yeah.
on paper, obviously you're hoping that the signing you have is going to be a good signing, but obviously some of those probably aren't going to work out. So it's like, so we'll start off with the first one. So the Bears hired Ben Johnson, Lions offensive coordinator. Everyone loves this move. Obviously, we saw what Ben Johnson's offense was with the Lions, and barring their that game against the Commanders last week. And honestly, the offense was fine. I guess you put up 31 points. That should, if your defense is working out correctly, that should technically win you an NFL game. The Lions' defense just absolutely imploded. We'll get to that later. Anyways, on paper, everyone loves this Ben Johnson signing. So, Sean, we're not Bears fans. What do you think about Ben Johnson? Is this the correct signing? Is this the guy that is going to unlock Caleb Williams?
I think this is a good signing. I think people need to mellow their expectations. I've seen a lot of people straight up say he's going to win 10 games, win 12 games next year. I think we just got to mellow it out. It's still a very tough division with Green Bay and Minnesota and Detroit sitting there. Chicago had a lot of problems, and there's a lot of things that need to be ironed out in that organization. I think they will be better. I actually am very confident they'll be better under him, but give it a couple years. I think this long term could be a very good play. It's just Chicago has been one of those teams. It's Chicago and the Jets, and we'll get to the Jets in a second. It just feels like every 3 years there's a new coach, and the expectations in those organizations are just unfair, especially Chicago. I mean, you go back to Adam Gase, I think it was. Was it Gates? No, it wasn't Gates. It was, maybe I'm mixing up guys now. It's the guy that went to Kansas City, offensive coordinator. He took Trubisky to playoff appearances, and then he got run out. I'm just blanking on his name, but he's in Kansas City now. Regardless, the expectations in Chicago are tough, but I think Ben Johnson was a good hire. I think he was the best one on the block from an offensive standpoint. I think Mike Vrabel was the best on the defensive standpoint. So they got basically the jewel of the ball.
Matt Nagy. That's
Matt Nagy, thank you. Yeah. Another guy with a short name.
right. You mentioned the Jets, so they got a new head coach. They just like the Bears stole one from the Lions. Lions got decimated, losing, kind of getting blown out in the second half against the Commanders, and then losing their offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, wide receivers coach, and defensive line coach. Anyways, Jets got Aaron Glenn, Lions defensive coordinator. Sean, what do we think about this? He's a former Jets player, and he's come out and publicly said that this is like his dream job. Like, he's wanted this job. So, is this the right hire?
This is the tough one. The Jets organization, out of all of the out of the a lot of the God, I mean, all the jobs right now have issues. This is a tough one, just from the aspect of I've seen the media kind of go back and forth on it. Some people really like it, some people really don't. My feeling is what they're going to be rehiring a coach in 3 years. I think Aaron Glenn's a good coach. I understand why he's going back to New York, but I think this could have been a situation where they should have gone offensive, not defensive. This is an organization that's gone defensive a lot in the last 15 to 20 years and it hasn't worked out very much. It's crazy to say, if I've got this right, they haven't been in the playoffs in 15 years. It's something crazy now. It's been a long time since they've seen the playoffs, and in a division where, Buffalo's got the handles on it. The Dolphins are kind of a mess at this point, and the Patriots are still in the cellar for right now. You know, there's offensive talent. You should have gone after the offense. They've gone defense a lot. Robert Saleh, I'll throw this in right now. I don't think was a horrible coach. I think it was just a dreadful situation, and he was very good on the defensive side of the ball. And he's gotten rehired already now in San Francisco for the defensive coordinator job there, and I'm sure he'll be very good. Robert Saleh was kind of the scapegoat this year, 2-3 at the time, and then they just completely fell apart. So it's a hard situation that he's going into, and I just don't know if it's going to work out.
And the big thing I want to know is you're coming in, and right now your quarterback is like 41 years old. So
Yeah.
Aaron Rodgers is not your future. So if you're coming in and Aaron Rodgers is going to be the guy next year, you have to do something or I should say next year,
Yeah.
because Aaron Rodgers can't play forever. That or you got to draft a quarterback in this draft, and it's not the greatest quarterback draft.
Yeah. And I just want to add one thing really quick. He did a great job with Detroit's defense, especially with that team just being in tatters at the end of the season. Like, it was amazing what he was able to do. But the thing that everyone needs to remember, the Jets, over the past, let's just go last 4 years, defense hasn't been the problem. They just can't score.
Yeah. No, yeah, Aaron Glenn did a great job, and everyone, take away that Commanders-Lions game. That was not a good way to end his tenure with the Lions, but overall, that was a really good defense.
Yeah.
Moving on to the Jaguars. So this is an interesting one. They hired Liam Cohen, Bucks offensive coordinator. He was interested in the Jags job, removed himself, took a pay raise and an extension with the Bucks to be the highest paid coordinator in the NFL. Jaguars let go of their GM, and then he goes back and takes the Jags head coaching job. So, Sean, I'm gonna keep the ball rolling. What do we think of Liam Cohen going to the Jags? And I'll pose the same question I did with Ben Johnson: is Liam Cohen the guy to unlock Trevor Lawrence?
I hope so. I think he could be good. I mean, it's one of those funny things where I feel like every coach that goes to Jacksonville, we always say this is going to be the guy, and then they end up not being the guy. The GM move makes sense to me. They had to fire him. They just waited till a very weird, awkward moment to do it. The reason for that is, I mean, he fired the last 3 coaches, I think it was. So you don't want to go into a situation where the GM's already in the hot seat. That's a bad job to take. So they're kind of reloading. Tampa Bay is getting talk about a team that got decimated. Tampa Bay, year after year, this is the second year in a row that they're losing their offensive coordinator. They lost their offensive coordinator to Carolina last year, now to Jacksonville. I think this could work out, but Jacksonville has just had such a bad history, even with very established coaches. It's going to be interesting under a first-time coach to see how it goes. This guy will be around definitely for 3 years. This won't be an automatic fire after 1 year. I can guarantee you that. But I'm hoping this guy turns out. He did great things with Baker, but he had a lot of weapons there. So we shall see.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. He was able to really get Baker looking like a kind of a franchise quarterback. So maybe he can do that with Lawrence. He does have Brian Thomas. Brian Thomas looks like a stud. But they do need to figure out who that second wide receiver is. Whether that really is Parker Washington, I don't quite think so. They need to bring someone else in or re-sign. I'm blanking on. It's a little wide. Christian Kirk.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
So we will see. Two more. We have two left. The Raiders hired Pete Carroll. Last coached in Seattle, obviously. He's been out of the league for a couple years. This one to me seems like very much a Brady hire. And yeah, I mean, again, on paper, looks great. Obviously, Pete's going to need to find a quarterback.
Yeah.
That's probably number one. Is the Raiders need a quarterback? The Raiders need a lot of things, but
Yeah.
a quarterback is something that we look at Pete Carroll and Russell Wilson's relationship, and that did wonders in Seattle. So interested to see what the Raiders do there, whether that's a guy like Cam Ward or Shador Sanders. I guess we'll see. So Sean, what do you think of the Pete Carroll signing?
I actually really like this hire quite a bit, and this is probably a hire they should have done last year, given the fact that he got run out of Seattle. The one thing that you can say about Pete Carroll that runs true through everyone in the NFL that we've always heard is everyone loves playing for Pete Carroll, and he brings a lot of energy, he brings a lot of excitement. Um, I am not saying the division he is now is comparable to what he had, years in those NFC West competition type situations, but and I'm not going to say he's going to make the Raiders a Super Bowl contender, but he's going to put out a very, very good team that's going to fight for him, and they're going to win more games than we're expecting, which is something that the Raiders haven't had in many years. Like, they're going to be competitive, and we'll probably see at the end of the year they'll probably wrap up like 8 wins and just be like, yeah, that was a team you just didn't want to play. That division, coaching wise, now with Carroll, Harbaugh, Reed, and Sean, Jesus, oh my God, Denver's coach.
Yeah, I don't know why I can't think of his name.
What the hell? I just blinked on his name. I got his first name. It'll come to me. That was weird. I mean, the amount of Sean Payton, the amount of titles, and the amount of just all those guys are going to the Hall of Fame, and we get basically round 3 of the Harbaugh Carroll rivalry, which will be fun. So overall, 3-year deal there, option of 4. I think it's the right move, especially to get the Raiders moving in the right direction again.
And last but not least, we have America's team, the Cowboys, who did not hire Deion Sanders. At this point, I think it's pretty safe to say Deion's staying at Colorado. I don't think an NFL move. I mean, he was linked to the Raiders, linked to the Cowboys. They didn't make the hire. Cowboys elevated their offensive coordinator, Brian Schottenheimer, in what many seem to be a very strange move. Well, again, we'll see how it plays out. I don't agree or disagree with it. One, I don't care. I'm not a Cowboys fan, so it doesn't really matter to me. It is a little odd just because I wouldn't say the Cowboys' offense was like all that great. Granted, Dak got hurt. They were running Cooper Rush out there. Their running game is a little sketchy. You got CeeDee Lamb is really their only true stud wide receiver. I mean, they were still running Brandon Cooks out there, who I swear, I don't know how he's like 31. The guy's been in the league for like 400 years. But yeah, this seems like a major Jerry Jones flex to me. Someone that he can kind of mold and manage, and it's really just Jerry's world. So, Brian Schottenheimer, they mentioned, he's got a great relationship with Dak. So that's honestly the big takeaway I took from articles I saw for why they elevated him, which then makes you think, okay, so Dak's going to be the guy for a while.
Yeah.
So then, Sean, I'll give it back to you. Last one, Cowboys. Is this? What do you think about this?
Yeah, I don't 100% understand what's going on here, and in saying I don't understand, I feel like this is a 1-year bridge. I think Dallas's organization, Jerry Jones in particular, is sitting there saying, we got Philly, we got Washington in our division, we got a lot of holes to plug, we got a lot of decisions to make in this offseason. Dak Prescott's contract is difficult to move this year, but next year could be pretty easy to move. So this could be one of those things where it's a bridge year. This might be a 1 year thing. And Mike McCarthy may have heard that, and because there was a mutual parting of ways, that's how they reported it. He may have heard that his end was coming next year, and this next year they're not going to be tanking, but they may not be putting out a great product because they just don't know how they can contend. And they're like, hey, we could build up for, who knows, maybe they're going to go after Arch Manning, something like that. I don't know. But it seems like it's a weird hire, especially for the Cowboys. It's not a splashy hire. It's not a guy that was on anyone else's radar at all. They stayed in-house where they already let go of the coach. It's just weird.
So here's my hot take. I liked that you mentioned a 1 year thing, and it kind of made me think of the Gerard Mayo hiring, and then they fire him after 1 year for Vrabel. Here's my hot take. Schottenheimer fired after 1 year. Dion comes in to coach after next season.
Yeah.
And they draft Arch Manning. And Dion coaches Arch Manning in Dallas.
Yeah. And that could very well happen. Like, they could be sorting things out here, and Schottenheimer's really just here to bridge things over. And I don't know. It just seems weird. But right now, how the roster's constructed, no one's going to say this team's going to playoffs next year. I mean, there's just no way. So, and they have a lot of pieces they need to fill.
Yeah, what I'm trying to look up right now what pick the
Right now they have 12.
Cowboys have. They have 12? Okay.
12, which everyone...
So probably out of the...
Yeah, everyone's projecting that they're going to get Genty. There's almost no mock draft that has basically not had that happening, which makes a lot of sense. They have to get a running back. So, because they basically ran this year without one.
Yeah, and I hope that they give Genty... I mean, if they draft Genty 12, they'll obviously give him some time, but to expect him to just carry an offense coming out of college.
Yeah.
I mean, the Cowboys' O-line isn't what it used to be, so...
They need a lot of help. There's a lot of pieces there. I mean, the other one that's interesting to see is I believe Micah Parsons probably gets traded at some point this offseason, and they probably rack up some draft picks, not only this year, but next year as well, because they'll probably get some stuff for him. I could see that happening. So, that said, we'll put the coaching search. There's one team left, Saints. My feeling, Mike McCarthy might get that job. Granted, there's a few coaches that are still in the hunt right now. Kansas City, Philly. There's a couple coaches out there that could, snag a position. So Saints are the last one out there, and I don't see any other coaches getting fired at this point. That would be shocking this late. But let's go backwards to the divisional round really quick. Just very quickly, is there anything that you took away from last weekend's games before we talk about the Final Four here?
Yeah, I kind of have one bullet point for each game, honestly. I mean, the Chiefs-Texans game kind of went how I thought it would. I wouldn't say the Chiefs dominated by any sense, but the Texans' offense kind of played like how I thought they would the week prior. Just kind of non-existent. Or maybe that's the Chiefs' defense playing really well. Either way, the Chiefs won. I wouldn't say handedly, but they got the job done. And that seems to be the Chiefs' mantra this season is they just got the job done.
Yep.
Commanders-Lions was by far it was probably the most fun game of the weekend just from an offensive standpoint. It was a shootout. I did not see that coming. Jaden Daniels is insane, and I think he's going to continue to be insane for the rest of his career. I mean, he kind of reminds me of like a better throwing Lamar Jackson. Like he's a true quarterback. Not to say Lamar's not a quarterback. Lamar has improved immensely from Louisville, but Jaden Daniels, he seems very special. the Lions just absolutely imploded, and I don't want to say we saw this coming, but we had talked about for weeks the injuries piling up. I know you had mentioned that earlier in today's show. So that kind of sucks because the Lions really, I mean, I truly think they were the best team in the NFL, just obviously going into this past weekend. Sucks. Eagles Rams I thought was a fun game. I know you'll probably talk a little bit about the snow, but the takeaway for me is that Saquon Barkley is by far the best running back in the NFL. He's unbelievable. And we kind of, I don't want to say we called it, because, I mean, like, sure, we did, but, like, the Rams also just didn't look like the Rams. They're an LA team playing in a dome, and they have to travel across the country and play in the snow. Like, that's, Matt Stafford has played in a dome his entire career. And then last but not least, actually Ravens-Bills was also, I mean, that could be a contender for the best game of the weekend too, depending how you look at it. Honestly, it came down to a dropped Mark Andrews catch, which sucks. It's like a shitty way to go out. But I thought Lamar handled it very well. I commend Lamar in his post-game presser saying that, that's not what lost us the game. There was multiple, opportunities in the first half and even the third quarter where they, could have scored or kicked a field goal or whatnot. So, he handled that, I thought, perfectly. You feel bad for someone like Mark Andrews. I mean, guy's a stud tight end, and he flubbed it. It wasn't the greatest pass. It wasn't like put right on the numbers, but it seemed like it was a catchable ball. So, anyways, I'll let you give your takeaways and
Yeah, just a
go
couple of
from there.
things really fast. One of the big things, which a lot of people have been saying this week, is if the referees are going to ref the way they did Kansas City against Houston, I don't see Kansas City losing. I mean, they're very ticky-tack fouls. They're not getting called anywhere else around the league. So that's going to be interesting moving forward here into the Buffalo game. Um, I don't think the calls really changed the outcome. I think Kansas City still beats Houston regardless, but just giving them an extra lifeline and stuff like that on plays that are not fouls, that's tough. Um, the Detroit thing really is just they just ran out of steam. They were so decimated, so hurt, and the conversation, which is nuts to already say going into the off season, is did Detroit's window already close? Especially in the division where Green Bay is looking really, really good. You're young and growing. Minnesota, they got quarterback questions, but they overachieved this year. And Chicago, now having Ben Johnson, they should be better. Has Detroit's window already closed, which is crazy. Snow game, Philly Rams, really good matchup. It's going to be interesting to see if Jalen Hurts can play this week. It's looking like it's going to happen, but there's been a lot of question marks. He basically didn't do anything at all in the second half, and they still won that game just sitting on Saquon Barkley, which is crazy. He should have gotten more MVP talk than he did. I get it, the quarterback run league, but it is what it is. And then Buffalo, Baltimore, just very interesting thing to take away from that one more than anything else was Josh Allen and the Bills really ran a simple game plan on the offense side of the ball. They just ran the ball, and Baltimore could not stop the run. Josh Allen, I don't remember the exact number, but he threw for like 122 yards. It was crazy. It was actually a very boring offensive attack where they just said, okay, we'll just run it and run it and run it. And just, but it kept working. And they were just like, okay, Josh Allen, I think, had 3 rushing touchdowns. 2 or 3, I can't remember. But it was just run it, run it, run it. And, it'll be interesting. And in the end, that game was determined by turnovers. Baltimore turned the ball over, and Buffalo didn't. So it'll be interesting to see if that's the same game plan going into Kansas City. That said, let's jump into these final 4 games really quickly. And who do we got? So on Sunday, the first game, we got the NFC Championship. Washington heading to Philadelphia. Obviously, these two teams have played each other twice already before this season. Who do you got in the NFC Championship?
I'm going Commanders. I think they have something special brewing. Jaden Daniels is finally making. I mean, we knew Terry McLaurin was good. We're finally seeing what Terry McLaurin really can be when he has an actual quarterback. Um, yeah, I don't know. There's just something about this Commanders team I really like. You mentioned Jalen Hurts. There's reports that he's off the injury report. I'm not buying that. I mean, sure, he is. He's probably going to be wearing a brace. This is a quarterback driven league, and if your quarterback's hurt, that doesn't do it for me. I know Saquon's really good, but if the Commanders understand that Jalen's Hurts is hurt, then hopefully they can stack the box and try to you know gang tackle Saquon because I mean he is human even though sometimes we don't think he is. The guy is an absolute freak. But yeah, I just really like how this Commanders team is playing right now, and I think they go into Philly and knock them off, and then we might even have a new head coaching opening because I know Philly will be pissed at Sirianni, and we've seen weirder stuff happen, and Sirianni for some reason, even though he takes his teams far into the playoffs every year, it seems he's always on the hot seat in Philly. So
Yeah.
yeah, we'll see what happens. But I'm taking the Commanders. I'm taking them by 4 points.
Okay. I'm actually taking Philly. I think the defense has been really good this postseason. They've been good most of the season, to be honest with you. But they really shut down that Rams offense last week. I know the snow helped that out, but they've got a very, very tough defensive front there. They did a really good job slowing down the Packers. I knew the Packers had a lot of injuries, but they really did a good job shutting that team down as well. It's crazy that they are basically running a one-dimensional offense and succeeding. It's wild. So if Hurts is able to throw the ball at all, they're a very, very tough team to beat because Saquon Barkley is basically just doing the whole thing on its own. That said, I think I'm going to take Philly. It's in Philly. I think it's going to be a very competitive game, but even though Detroit was the 1 seed, they took down the 1 seed. I think this is a tougher matchup just given the fact that Philly's defense is healthy for the most part. A couple of injuries there, but they don't have 13 guys on the IR. They're coming in fairly healthy. And you're not going to be able to run on them. We saw that last week. Rams couldn't run on them at all. Jumping to the late game, AFC Championship game, Bills heading to Kansas City.
Yeah, this one to me is a complete toss-up. I mean, if this was in Buffalo, I would easily take Buffalo, I think, at home. This is going to be a cold game. I think temperatures are going to be in like the low 30s. Typical Buffalo Chiefs game, I feel like it's always Buffalo Chiefs in the AFC Championship. It just seems like every year it's always Allen versus Mahomes. This year I think is a little different though. I think the Chiefs' shot at a three-peat comes to an end. I think the Bills, and specifically Josh Allen, run all over the Chiefs. Not in like a dominating way, but to win the game. I just think the Bills are a better team. The Chiefs to me, they're good. I mean, you can't be 15-2 and undefeated at home and not be a good team, but they don't dominate. To me, they win moments. So, and what I mean by that is like they're not always like there's games where they've won and they've had less yardage than the team they're playing. But when the moment is on the line, Mahomes gets it done. Or Kareem Hunt gets it done. Or Travis Kelce gets it done. But then you look back at the game and you're like, well, the Chiefs didn't really dominate. But then they won by, 4, 5, 6 points. So it's like when the moment is at the biggest, it seems like they just get it done. And maybe I'll be wrong in picking the Bills. But I just think at some point that's got to dry up. And the Bills, to me, overall, I think are a better team. And their defense is playing a little bit better. I wouldn't say the Bills have a great defense. The Chiefs have a much better defense. But the Bills' offense, I think, is what gets it done. So I'm taking the Bills.
Yeah, I want the Bills to win. I'm going to be rooting for the Bills. I'm going to take Kansas City. Purely for the fact of we've seen this story a lot before. Until otherwise, it just feels like you got to take Kansas City. I want Buffalo to jump over the edge. I think it'll be a very exciting Super Bowl if Buffalo is in it. Yeah, I hope it's not Kansas City, but at this point, it's just we've seen this story too many times. I think Kansas City wins. So it's kind of what you said all year. Just don't bet against Kansas City.
Yeah, this is the second time I'm doing it, and it'll probably bite me in the ass again, but we'll see.
Yeah. So, but outside of that, is there anything else you wanna say before we wrap up this week?
Yeah, I have one little tiny mini rant. If we can have a Taylor Swift cam for the Chiefs, can we have a Haley Steinfeld cam for the Bills? One, I like her more than Taylor Swift. And let's give Josh Allen some love too. They're actually engaged. Travis and Taylor aren't. So I don't need to see Taylor every time Travis gets a catch.
It was cool seeing.
But if they're going to do that,
yeah, it was cool seeing Caitlin
What's
Clark
that?
there though.
that is true. Apparently, Caitlin Clark and Taylor Swift are friends now. So, and maybe Haley Steinfeld's not even at the games. I don't even know. So maybe they can't do a cam. But if she is, give her some love too, because she's a really good young actress, and she's engaged to Josh Allen, who's just as big of a name, if not bigger, than Travis Kelce.
I also learned this week that Travis Kelce owns a box at Arrowhead, and that's why. So I learned that. Wild. But yeah, we'll see.
Interesting.
Well, should be exciting. Should be exciting 2 games tomorrow. I'll be watching. Let's hope for the best. Until next week, I don't think I got anything else to add. Actually, who knows?
Maybe probably not next week.
Yeah, well, at some point before the Super Bowl, we'll be back. So, yeah, we'll talk to you guys soon.